Good afternoon. Welcome to Northern Maine Productions. This is going to be a little different kind of a video on snapper lawnmowers. I've got a Series 1 machine right here in front of me, and I've got my Series 3 machine further over. Now, I know that there's a lot of confusion out there about these machines. There's confusion about how old they are, what model they are, how to date them. A lot of time, if you've got one that's been really heavily modified, there's a good chance that you're never going to identify it. If it's been built out of multiple machines and there's no model tag on the chassis, you will never ever identify that machine for the most part. But there are certain things about these that can help you identify them, and I'll go through a few things here that's very obvious. We talked about this a little bit in a previous video, and I was working on that 30083 over there. But now that I've got them sitting here right side by side in the shop, I can actually show you right here on video. So on the Series 1 machines, the first obvious difference is the gas tank. Now, a lot of times on these machines, a smaller machine that had like a 5 or 6 horsepower engine on it may have had the gas tank mounted down here on the engine. I know they did that on some of the early ones, the real early X models in the 60s, but I'm not 100% sure about these ones. So the gas tank is mounted on the left rear fender on this Series 1 machine. The key switch is underneath of the seat on a Series 1. Underneath the seat on a Series 3 machine, you'll see that there's a push button to start for the electric start. And if it does not have electric start, there will be a blank plug in that hole, just like this one that's up here on the wall. You wait just a second here. This is actually the original plate off of that. That's how this one was. That Series 3 machine over there did not have electric start originally. I put it on there. So yes, so the gas tank and the key switch location is different. The throttle lever is mounted up here on the headstock on a Series 1. On a Series 3 machine, the throttle lever is mounted right here on the side of the blade hanger bracket. And on this Series 3 machine, the key switch is mounted right here on the headstock. So that's another good clue. Now, there are other ways to identify these too. Series 1 and older machines, back as far as 1967, the X models, had this style of blade hanger on it. Right here. Now, if you do know anything about these, if you're looking at this, you'll notice that this machine doesn't have the arched fender on it, but it's supposed to. And that's because this has a Series 5 differential in it. I had to change the differential in this. The differential blew up in it 7 or 8 years ago. So let's go to Series 5 differential in it. So the blade hanger bracket on this 30083, as you can see, is considerably different. Now, this one is adjustable. The only possible way to adjust the ones on these old Series 1 machines is to actually bend those arms, and it's not real common to have to do that. If you got to bend them arms, something bad happened. You could run into something or got damaged in some way. Let's see here. The seats would have been the same on these two machines. We've got another thing about a Series 1 machine is they will not have the additional thing sticking up here in the back that the gas tank sets into. So the spring under the seat is actually different. You can see right in there on that Series 3 that the gas tank actually hooks to the seat spring. It actually sets down over the seat spring. So let's see here. I know there's some other things here that I want to talk about too. The shifting handles, the shifting lever and the shifting handle should be identical between Series 1 and Series 2 or Series 3. Obviously that Series 3 machine, I've got a screwdriver handle driven down on there because the correct shift knob is no longer available for it. So I used an old snap-on screwdriver handle. Now, there's another unique spotting feature to Series 1 machines. Series 1 machines have got an A1 style handlebar. You can identify this A1 handlebar by the two bolts that are present here above the headstock. Look at this Series 3 machine. There's no bolts there. The mounting bolt is down under there, and there's a clamp around the base of it, around the base of the handlebars. And they're not interchangeable because the bushing is a different size. The hole up in here in the headstock is larger on the Series 3 machine than it is on the Series 1. And I know that because 3 or 4 years ago, my nephew was running this Series 1 machine. We were at my aunt's place a few miles from here mowing her lawn, and the steering shaft broke in this thing. It broke right in under here where this bolt goes through. I don't know if that was ever an issue with these or not, but it broke right off clean. The handlebars come right off in it. And that was when I discovered that they were different, because I tried to take the steering shaft out of that Series 3 machine and put it in this one, and that's when I discovered they were vastly different. Now, of course, the Series 1 machine, that steering shaft's no longer available. Hasn't been available probably for a long time. So I had to manufacture one. I had to get a piece of round stock that was the same size as the old piece, and I cut it to the same identical length. I had to mark the holes, and I had to drill the holes out on this. And then, I don't know if we can see it or not, but I had to cut the tie rod in plate loose from that old machine. Maybe I can get down underneath here and show you guys. Probably not, but I had to take a grinder and cut that tie rod plate. I had to cut the weld off that welded that little plate onto the bottom of that steering shaft, and I had to weld it back onto this one. It was a bit of a pain in the rear because everything's got to be lined up pretty perfectly. Now, the steering is still very sloppy on this old machine because I did not change any of the tie rod ends, and the holes are worn quite bad in the bottom of the front frame here. So, but it still works. Just looks like a drunk mowed your lawn's all when you're mowing with it, because it darts back and forth quite a lot. The other obvious difference between Series 1 and Series 3 is the metal deck cover. This one actually has a painted white metal deck cover on it, and that one has a plastic black cover on it. Now, I think there was at least 1 year just before they switched over to the plastic cover that I believe they started painting the covers red. I've seen one or two of them that had a red cover on it that was painted the same color red as the machine, and it actually had white printing on the red for all these instructions over here. It might have even had the same decal on it, but that white cover there has never been painted. That's still the original paint on that. So there's even another way to tell if you've got an older machine. Series 1 machines, if you look right here where the cables come out through by the pedals, you'll notice how small that hole is right there. Very small, and the cables rubbed in fairly hard. As you can see down in there, that's wore into that quite a bit. And also, this hole right here on the Series 1 is further back up the tube than it is on the Series 3 machine. So if you look at the Series 3, look at how much larger the hole is. It's got a large rectangular shaped hole. And ironically, the cables still rub pretty hard on them. It's the same on this side. And look at how much further ahead this hole is. This was designed only for the switch wire on this machine. They had to put the other one further back up here on the Series 1 so that the throttle cable could get out through there without having such a sharp bend in it. That's what I would say was the issue. So, yes, there are numerous ways to identify a machine. Now, just as a date reference, the Series 3 machine was made between the years of 1979 and 1982. Now, if you really want to get specific about the year of it, and you have a Briggs & Stratton engine, there are some clues. If you're 100% certain that that has the original engine on it, look at the code date on the side of the engine, and you can kind of see it in there. But this machine has a Snapper engine on it. This was originally on a Snapper, but it's not the original motor to this machine. So the first two digits of the code are the year that the motor was made. That 11 horse engine right there actually was manufactured October of '84. So, but another dead giveaway to tell if you do not have your original engine on there, if you've got a Briggs & Stratton on an older machine, on a Series 6 or prior machine that is not white, if it's black or silver or whatever color, it didn't come factory on that machine unless somebody changed the short block. Now, I saw a video a guy was sharing on YouTube the other day. I believe the covers on the engine were white and all the auxiliary parts were still white, but the engine block was silver or natural aluminum color. And that's how they came from the factory if you got a replacement short block from Briggs. I know, I put a lot of them on back in the day, but so this machine, whoop, wow, it fell down. So this machine here does not have the original engine. This machine had a Tecumseh engine on it originally. From everything I can tell, it had an 8 horsepower Tecumseh on it. This engine's about a 1990. This is a synchro balance Briggs & Stratton. So, and this exhaust system that's on this is not original, obviously, either. The original exhaust would have wrapped around and there would have been a muffler sticking out back here. But it's pretty hard to find those original old exhaust systems now that are any good. And if you do find one that's any good, a lot of times the issue is the bolts are broke off in the friggin' block. And it's a bastard to get the bolts out of them things, because they get, you know, they get galvanic corrosion, steel bolts in that aluminum block. So keep that in mind too, that they may or may not have the original exhaust. The exhaust system on that 11 horse engine that's the original pipe and part of the original hanger that's bolted to the head, but the muffler, that little cigar shaped muffler, is not original. That originally had a much bigger muffler on it than that one. And I wished it still had the big muffler on it, because that one there is actually fairly loud. It barks pretty bad when you get into a hard cut with it. But there's not much I can do about that right now. I'm just going to keep searching. But yeah, I mean, there's many cues to figuring out kind of what you got for a machine. Typically, from what I've seen, the larger machines starting around maybe series 0 or series 1, typically the larger machines with like 28 and 30 inch decks on them and 8 or 10 horsepower engines typically had the wide tires on them. Them were 16 650 by 8. Now they did have earlier or smaller machines that had the real narrow tires on them. They were the same height as these ones, they were just narrow. My old 2650 that's sitting up back of the scrap pile had narrow tires on it. Let's see here. If you've got a machine that is Series 6 or newer, it will not have the auxiliary brake pedal. They done away with that after Series 5. But so that's just kind of a general way to tell what you've got. So I think I stated before, this Series 3 machine was made from 1979 to 82. The Series 1 machine right here was made between the years of 1974 and 1978. There was one Series 2 machine. It was a 2652. It was made between 1975 and 1978, I believe. Really, just Series 2 really don't exist. They jumped pretty much on these bigger machines. They jumped right from Series 1 to Series 3. So effectively, this Series 3 machine was a direct replacement for this one. Now, when you got into later years, there was other improvements and safety requirements. I can't remember if it was it might have been later on in Series 3, it might have been in Series 4 and 5. They started putting the blade safety pedals on them down in here. Now, as far as I know, this machine did not ever have the pedals on it. However, I believe that at some point in time that plastic cover got replaced on this, because it actually has a cover on it for blade safety. It's got blade safety and the blade safety pedal instructions on there. I don't remember what the deal was. You know, like I said, I used to work on this years ago, and it doesn't have any, you know, everything that was in underneath looked all original. It looked exactly like everything does in this one. And I'm pretty sure that nobody would have bought a whole bunch of different parts to change that over from the blade pedal, from those safety pedals. They actually called that ABS. It was called auto blade stop, and it was mandated by, I think, around 1983, that every lawnmower had to have some sort of automatic blade stop. That included push mowers. So Snapper, in their infinite wisdom, instead of having a safety switch on the seat where if the operator fell off the machine it would stop, they had it so that if the operator fell off of this machine, they let go of the pedals and the blade would stop and the engine would keep running and the machine would keep going. So yeah, trust me, I know. I fell off this one once. In fact, I rolled it right over, right on a lid, right out here in the middle of the street one time. The bank was pretty steep out here, and it slid in the wet grass, and then it dropped off the curb and hit the hot top, and it dumped me, and the machine landed upside down. The blades were still running and everything, and it was still running, of course, and it took the smoking like a son of a gun, and I got out from under it pretty quickly, and I grabbed it somewheres and flipped it back over on its wheels, not even thinking the damn thing was still in gear, and away it went down the road without me. So yeah, safety was a little bit questionable on these things. You got to be careful not to fall off of them, and you got to be careful not to cut your feet, because you can get off these with the blades in gear on these older machines. So that's one thing to bear in mind. But well, anyways, I don't think that there's any more here to talk about. I just kind of wanted to point out a few of the very obvious things that might help you guys identify your older machine. Now obviously, if you really want to try to identify them, you can get in the parts manual. If you think you got a certain model, you can get in the parts manual and you can start comparing part numbers. Well, that's a pain in the rear, and it takes a lot of time to do that, so be prepared. But this 30083, when I put it back together, I used every single original part that I could, and if I replaced parts, I used OEM style parts. This deck shell is not original, but it's the same exact thing as the original one was. So it has all the original wheels on it, with the exception of one front one. This one right here on the front came off an older machine like this. That's because there was a wheel and tire missing off the front of it when I got it. But anyways, I think I've covered about everything I wanted to cover here, and I'm just going to shut up and quit talking now. So, but yeah, here's just kind of a little bit of an overall look at them. I'll get over here and you have to excuse the disaster on the workbench over there. I still haven't got that completely cleaned up, but yeah, so there you go. I hope this helps out. You guys all have a good afternoon. Bye bye.